What if the rules of making money were less about luck and more about simple, repeatable choices you can start today? The Art of Money. Getting by. P.T. Barnum is not a history book about a showman. It's a pragmatic playbook on work, reputation, negotiation, and the small decisions that compound into wealth. In the next journey, we'll strip Barnum's blunt, often surprising advice into 20 actionable chapters: how to sell, how to save, how to brand yourself, and how to turn integrity into profit. Stick with me to the end, because these Victorian-era rules still expose the modern shortcuts everyone otherwise wastes time discovering. Ready to learn the habits that actually make money? Chapter 1. The Foundation: Industry, Economy, and Reliable Habits. Success begins with the daily choices most people ignore: showing up, conserving capital, and turning small repetitive acts into reliable advantage. Barnum's first lesson is relentlessly practical. Wealth is manufactured through industry and method, not magic. Industry means structured effort. Set a predictable routine that reserves the best hours for the highest leverage tasks and treats work as a professional craft. Economy means distinguishing between saving and penuriousness. Spend on what multiplies value and cut what merely consumes attention or reputation. Barnum insists on transparency in accounting. Know exactly where money flows, maintain cash reserves for lean times, and avoid debt that compounds anxiety. Reputation is the multiplier on every transaction. Truthfulness, punctuality, and visible care for customers convert single purchases into repeat business. On the human side, build habits that scale: daily learning, brief end-of-day reflections that record what produced value, and a weekly review that prunes low-return activities. Barnum recommends setting a target for saving a fixed proportion of income and protecting that habit with automation. In a modern voice, pay yourself first. He warns against the seductive illusions of quick speculation and emphasizes incremental capital accumulation coupled with reinvestment. The practical posture is modest: plan for solvency, invest in skill, and make reliability your brand. Industry plus economy plus character create a gravitational pull for opportunity. Do those three well, and you make nearly every other advantage multiply. Chapter 2. The Art of Advertising: Honest Display and Intelligent Promotion. Barnum is famous for showmanship, but his core lesson on advertising is sober. Advertise boldly, but honestly. Make your message impossible to miss and easy to trust. Effective promotion begins with clarity of offer, what exactly you provide and why it matters. Translate features into benefits and demonstrate them concretely. Use repetition and visibility. Consistent, frequent presence builds familiarity that lowers purchase friction. However, Barnum warns against hype that betrays product reality. Exaggerated claims yield immediate interest but long-term, reputational collapse. Instead, combine attractive display with verifiable facts, testimonials, demonstrations, and simple evidence that anchors claims. Presentation matters. Packaging, cleanliness, and attention to small details signal competence. In modern terms, invest in front-end experience: thumbnail, headline, first 10 seconds of a video, or the shop window. Barnum also teaches layered promotion: a bold, attention-grabbing headline followed by a quick, credible proof, and then a clear call to action. Use scarcity carefully. Limited availability can move decisions, but do not manufacture false emergency. Truth sustains conversion over time. Finally, track returns. Which messages produced engagement? Which channels converted to lasting customers? Optimize, not obsess. Barnum's advertising ethic is simple: be loud enough to be noticed, honest enough to be trusted, and careful enough to convert attention into durable patronage. Chapter 3. Salesmanship: Service, Negotiation, and the Gentle. Close selling is not coercion. In Barnum's view, it's service. A sale begins with listening, discover the buyer's need, reflect it back, and position your offer as the logical, low-risk resolution. Train empathy as a sales tool, ask clarifying questions, summarize objections, and offer small trial experiences that reduce perceived risk. Pricing is a negotiation tool. Anchor with a fair high reference, then offer simpler, lower-risk entry points. Barnum advocates a gentle close, a short, confident question that invites commitment rather than pressure. For larger deals, break the transaction into incremental agreements with clear, measurable milestones. Always package deliverables so that the buyer can visualize the end state. Visual proxies shorten decision time. Importantly, avoid one-time extraction. Include aftercare, simple follow-up, repair policies, and willingness to correct mistakes, which turns a single buyer into a committed referrer. Master small demonstrations of value, samples, free previews, or short guarantees. When negotiating, identify common ground early, propose options for mutual gain, and use time-bound incentives sparingly. Treat objections as opportunities to clarify, not obstacles to overcome by force. Salesmanship built as service multiplies lifetime customer value and transforms daily transactions into compound reputation. Chapter 4. Personal Brand, Character, Manners, and the Currency of Trust. Barnum recognized that personal conduct is the most durable marketing asset. Your character, punctuality, courtesy, honesty becomes a brand that travels faster and lasts longer than any advertisement. Manners are not mere politeness, they are protocols that reduce social friction and make people comfortable doing business with you. Be prompt in commitments, neat in presentation, and modest in promises. The public perception of integrity is fragile. Respond to errors immediately and visibly. Public corrections, small reparations, and sincere apologies convert potential scandals into trust signals. Barnum's counsel also includes visible generosity. When you share credit, uplift partners, and return favors, you create a network of goodwill that often returns multiplied opportunities. Invest in reputation management as you would in machinery. Track public feedback, correct patterns that erode trust, and institutionalize simple customer care rituals. Over time, a well-cultivated personal brand reduces friction in negotiation, increases referral frequency, and commands premium pricing because people pay to avoid risk. Chapter 5. Time Management and the Priority of Action. Time is your raw material. Barnum's advice is to convert it into value through disciplined prioritization. Define a small list of non-negotiable daily tasks that produce the largest returns and protect those times fiercely. Use blocks of uninterrupted time for deep, creative work and shorter blocks for transactional and social duties. Avoid calendar bloat, decline meetings without agendas, batch routine tasks, and schedule recovery rituals to preserve sustained attention. Barnum insists on the practical math of opportunity cost. Every hour you spend on low-return activity is an hour stolen from compounding work. Use a simple weekly planning ritual, identify the one major metric you want to move, and design daily micro-tasks that feed that metric. For urgent tools, set rules. Immediate customer inquiries get short. Templated replies, longer decisions get time-boxed research. Train decisiveness with many small, reversible decisions to avoid decision fatigue. Time management is not about doing more, but about doing the right things consistently. The discipline of protecting high-leverage blocks creates the conditions for both creativity and steady growth. Chapter 6. Capital and Credit. Prudence, leverage, and the rescue fund. Barnum's approach to money is conservative but intelligent. Leverage only when returns are predictable and protect yourself with a rescue fund. Maintain a clear separation between operating capital, daily expenses, and investment capital growth experiments. Avoid over-leveraging on assumptions that require perfect execution. Prefer small, testable expansions that can be reversed. He strongly recommends building a cash cushion that covers several lean cycles. This optionality reduces panic-driven errors and allows you to seize opportunities with speed. When considering loans or credit, ask 3 questions. What is the realistic return? What happens if revenue falls 20%? And can the debt be paid with moderate success rather than exceptional performance? If answers are uncertain, delay or downsize the project. Barnum also values reputational credit, the informal credit extended by peers and clients based on trust, and emphasizes keeping promises to preserve that resource. In short, treat credit as a tool to accelerate proven systems, not as a quick fix for speculative wants. Chapter 7. Product and Service. Quality. Consistency as competitive edge. Quality is not a one-off gesture. It's a system that becomes a competitive moat. Barnum's counsel: standardize your processes so that customers experience the same excellence every time. Map the customer journey, identify the moments that matter, and make those moments reliable. Use checklists, training, and simple quality audits to prevent drift. When errors occur, have a visible recovery protocol that converts disappointment into renewed loyalty. Consistency reduces cognitive risk for customers. They pay a premium for predictability. Also, invest in marginal improvements that compound: slightly faster delivery, small additive features, or clearer instructions, because cumulative micro-enhancements add up to noticeable differentiation. Treat quality as a managed variable. Measure it, incentivize it, and reward employees who contribute to reliable outcomes. Chapter 8. Frugality and Investment. Where to cut and where to grow. Being frugal doesn't mean being cheap. It means being strategic about allocation. Barnum argues for ruthless prioritization. Invest in assets that increase earning capacity, education, tools, small marketing experiments, and cut recurring costs that drain attention or reputation. Use a simple test for any expense. Does this cost free up time, reduce friction, or increase income potential? If not, delay or remove it. He also recommends periodic expense audits to prune legacy costs that persist despite diminishing returns. Conversely, make small, high-probability investments that scale: a tested ad campaign, a trainer who raises team skill, or a new distribution channel with demonstrated demand. The balance of frugality and selective investment produces financial resilience and accelerates capital for the right opportunities. Chapter 9. Negotiating. Partnerships and alliances, mutual gain, not domination. Partnerships multiply reach, but poorly structured ones create long-term complications. Barnum teaches negotiation for mutual gain. Define shared objectives, set transparent contributions, and create exit rules that prevent catastrophic entanglement. Begin any alliance with clear, measurable deliverables and a short initial trial period that de-risks alignment. Use written agreements for clarity, but maintain relational rituals, regular check-ins, shared dashboards, and public recognition of joint wins. In negotiations, aim for options that expand future optionality, rights of first refusal, pilot-to-scale clauses, and staged investment, rather than all-in commitments. Also mind the human side. Partners who are honest and accountable compound value more than superficially larger but unreliable counterparts. Structure partnerships so that each party can win quickly. Early wins build confidence, reduce friction, and deepen commitment. Chapter 10. Risk Management and the Long View. Small bets, regular review. Barnum's final advice for the first half of the book is to manage risk through diversification of bets, frequent reviews, and disciplined exit strategies. Avoid single-point dependency on any one customer, supplier, or channel. Run small concurrent experiments rather than one large all-in bet. Create an operational cadence, weekly metrics reviews, monthly financial snapshots, and quarterly strategic check-ins that reweight your portfolio of projects based on outcomes. For each active initiative, define a kill criterion, an explicit metric and time horizon that, if unmet, triggers shutdown. This prevents sunk cost fallacy from eroding capital and morale. Also, develop mental models for tail risks, rare but severe events, and build contingency plans, alternate suppliers, emergency cash, and pre-assigned decision authorities. The long view favors modest, repeated gains compounded over time. Steady review and disciplined pruning keep your trajectory upward, while preserving the ability to seize the occasional transformative opportunity. Chapter 11. Hiring, Training, and Leading. Reliable People. Hiring is not a guess, it is the engineering of human reliability. Barnum's practical advice translates into a simple rule: hire character first, train skills second. Skills can be taught in weeks or months. Habits, punctuality, honesty, and temperament are far harder to change. Start by designing a concise selection process that reveals both competence and character. Use short, realistic work samples or trial days rather than relying solely on resumes or polished interviews. Observe punctuality, demeanor with others, and problem-solving under mild pressure. These small signals predict future reliability. When you hire, be explicit about expectations. A short written charter that lists key responsibilities, standard operating hours, performance metrics, and the first 30-day priorities gives new hires a runway for success and reduces ambiguous judgment calls that create conflict. Invest heavily in onboarding. A 3-step onboarding sequence: orientation, context and values; capability, skill drills and templates; and connection, introductions and simple, collaborative tasks, reduces early churn and accelerates productive contribution. Training should be decomposed into micro-modules, short, focused sessions targeting discrete tasks, followed by immediate application and quick feedback. Use checklists and shadowing as training scaffolds, so quality does not depend on vague verbal instruction. Barnum emphasizes visible standards, document the right way and the common mistakes, so learning is explicit. Leadership is a management of systems as much as people. Create routines and rituals that make good behavior habitual. A 5-minute daily huddle to align priorities, a brief end-of-day report, and a weekly learning share where one team member teaches a small improvement. These rituals create social norms that sustain performance even when the leader is absent. Compensation and incentive design should be tightly aligned with desired outcomes. Wherever possible, include simple performance-linked rewards, commissions on sales, small bonuses for positive customer feedback, or recognition for reliability milestones. But beware perverse incentives. Reward the right behavior in proportion and at the right level to avoid short-term gaming. Discipline is also a system. Make rules simple, consequences known, and enforcement consistent. When small infractions are ignored, standards erode quickly. Conversely, fair and predictable enforcement builds trust because people prefer honest accountability to capricious favoritism. Communication habits matter. Make it easy to report problems by normalizing early escalation. Flag it fast, fix it faster, and ensure managers respond within a short, consistent time frame. Finally, cultivate internal mobility and skill investment. Cross-train employees so the business suffers less from single-point dependencies, and offer regular micro-learning allowances, books, short courses, to keep skills sharp and to signal investment in people's growth. Barnum's durable insight is that a paying customer often remembers the human face of service more than the product itself. Hiring and leading reliable people turns service into a sustainable competitive advantage. Chapter 12. Customer Care and after-sales. Excellence. Customers are not transactions, they are relationships built over time by consistent, modest actions. Barnum's thinking centers on the after-sale moment as the most potent site of long-term value. The purchase is only the beginning. Post-purchase experience drives loyalty, referrals, and reputation. Start with simple, predictable follow-ups, a short thank you note, clear delivery timelines, and an explicit point of contact for questions. Make returns and complaints processes frictionless, clear, fast, and fair. A prompt correction of a problem often converts a dissatisfied buyer into a fervent advocate because the recovery demonstrates integrity. Measure customer sentiment with small, recurrent metrics, a one-question satisfaction prompt after delivery, and a net promoter-style question at monthly intervals. Use the data for fast improvement loops. If a persistent issue appears, mobilize a quick fix team and update the standard operating procedure to prevent recurrence. Build a culture of proactive care. Empower frontline staff with small discretionary authority, a modest refund, a complimentary service, so micro issues are resolved immediately without bureaucratic friction. When scaling, codify those empowerment rules to ensure consistency. Personalization matters. Keep a simple CRM log with salient personal details and past interactions, so repeat customers receive contextual touches, not creepy surveillance, but useful memory. Last time you bought X, you mentioned Y, thought this might interest you. These touches increase perceived value and deepen bonds. Another high-leverage practice is the surprise and delight cadence. Occasionally include an unprompted small gift, a handwritten note, or an exclusive offer. The cost is low, the emotional return is disproportionate. Chapter 13. Scaling the business, systems, timing, and controlled growth. Scaling is not expansion for its own sake. It is the disciplined replication of systems that already work. Barnum's cautionary stance against reckless enlargement is a guide. Scale the system before scaling the size. Validate processes at small scale, then create operational manuals so new units reproduce the original's strengths. Begin by mapping the minimal viable system. Identify the few processes that, if repeated, preserve quality and value, customer intake, quality checks, delivery, and feedback loops, then document them in simple, accessible formats. Standardize roles and responsibilities so replication does not rely on heroic efforts by a single founder. Timing matters. Scale when demand consistently outstrips current capacity and when cash flow supports investment without destabilizing operations. Use staged scaling, pilot a new outlet, channel, or market with explicit metrics and a short trial period rather than making an all-in bet. Leverage modular design in products and services so variations can be introduced without redoing core processes. Invest in low-friction infrastructure, financial systems, payroll, supply chain contracts that scale linearly and reduce transactional overhead. Automate where automation reduces error and frees human energy for high-value tasks. But do not automate away human judgment where nuance matters. Maintain a rigorous financial buffer for expansion. Growth often requires upfront spending before revenue catches up. Prepare governance for growth, short communication chains, clear escalation rules, and periodic cross-functional reviews to catch integration issues early. Chapter 14. Innovation, Product Development, and Continuous Improvement. Innovation is an operational habit, not a sporadic brainstorm. Barnum's sensibility favors incremental, customer-driven improvements over radical, detached invention. Start with a listening pipeline where frontline staff, customers, and simple data collection feed a prioritized backlog of improvements. Use micro-experiments, small time-box tests that answer a specific question. Does a minor packaging change reduce damage rates? Does a slightly adjusted service script increase satisfaction? Run several parallel small tests rather than one large untested overhaul. Use the learn fast rule, rapid hypotheses, minimal implementation cost, quick measurement, and a decision to scale or kill. Protect a small innovation budget that funds these controlled experiments so ideas do not die in the suggestion box. Encourage internal suggestion systems with simple incentives, a small bonus for implemented ideas and public recognition for contributors. Build product development as a cross-functional process. Ops, sales, and customer service must collaborate to anticipate operational constraints. If you plan a major product shift, prototype with pilot customers to gather real-world feedback before broad rollout. Track the cost of change carefully. Small innovations should reduce friction or raise perceived value without destabilizing core processes. Also monitor competitive moves, not to copy slavishly. Chapter 15. Positioning against competitors, differentiation and strategic niches. Competition is a landscape of choices, not a zero-sum fight. Barnum's edge was not brute dominance but clever positioning, finding niches where his format produced unique value and making that uniqueness visible. Begin by mapping competitors' strengths and, more importantly, their neglects. What unsolved customer need do they ignore? Position your offer to solve that gap explicitly. Use simple differentiation levers, better reliability, lower cognitive friction, superior customer care, or a unique bundled service that competitors can't copy without major change. Avoid head-to-head price wars. Compete on attributes that matter and that you can sustainably deliver. Carve strategic niches by specializing in a tightly defined customer segment. Solve their specific pain exceptionally well, and then extend outwards slowly if scale permits. Use narrative to make differentiation obvious. Stories, metaphors, and visible proof points that make your unique value stick in the market's mind. Monitor competitor moves, but measure your own progress against customer-centric KPIs rather than tactical matches. The long-term advantage accrues to the company that deepens value in a focused domain. Finally, create barriers to imitation, intellectual property where possible, superior processes that require time to replicate, and a loyal customer base formed through consistent care. Positioning is less about attacking rivals and more about being unmistakable to customers. Chapter 16. Legal prudence, contracts, and protecting your work. Business without basic legal hygiene is fragile. Barnum's era required prudence. Today, the principle is the same. Clear agreements prevent costly misunderstandings. Use simple written contracts for partnerships, supplier relationships, and major customer deals. Contracts need not be long. Clarity beats length. Define deliverables, timelines, payment terms, responsibilities, and a short dispute resolution path. For employment, document role expectations and simple termination clauses to avoid ambiguous claims. Protect intellectual assets, branding, unique processes, or product designs, with appropriate measures. Trademarks for names and key visuals, confidentiality agreements for sensitive collaborations, and documented process ownership. Maintain records meticulously. Receipts, communications, and decision logs are essential if disputes arise. When taking on loans or credit, insist on written terms and model worst-case scenarios to ensure solvency. Seek basic legal counsel when necessary. An hour of preventive advice often saves months of reactive cost. Finally, institutionalize compliance rhythms, regular checks for tax, regulatory, and contractual obligations, so legal friction never becomes a surprise that interrupts operations. Chapter 17. Publicity, Press, and Reputation. Engineering publicity is not chance. It is engineered attention aligned with truth. Barnum understood showmanship, but also the discipline of building steady media relationships. Create concise, newsworthy angles for the press that link a human story to broader relevance, local impact, innovative practices, or unusual customer stories, rather than thin self-promotion. Build a short media kit, a crisp company summary, a few high-quality images, and one compelling quote that captures your mission. Maintain an active but honest media cadence. Regular stories that matter, not constant publicity noise. Respond quickly and transparently to negative press, with facts, correction plans, and visible corrective action. Over-communication in a crisis calms stakeholders. Silence fuels rumor. Cultivate relationships with a small set of journalists and influencers who cover your domain and provide them with useful, exclusive material occasionally. Reciprocity builds readiness to feature you when relevant. Use measured stunts sparingly. Attention-grabbing events can be powerful but must be truthful and aligned with reputation. Frivolous spectacles risk long-term trust. Track media impact not by impressions alone but by engagement and conversion. Did the story lead to meaningful inquiries or partnerships? Reputation engineering includes monitoring. Set up alerts for mentions and respond within a standard time frame. Finally, treat publicity as one element of reputation, not a substitute for product quality and honest customer care. When substance supports story, attention becomes durable. Chapter 18, Philanthropy, Civic Presence, and Legacy Planning. Wealth accumulates meaning through responsible stewardship. Barnum modeled public generosity not as ostentation, but as investment in social capital, charity that both served causes and reinforced public trust in his enterprises. Design philanthropy to align with your values and with the communities that sustain your business. Start small and local, micro grants, sponsorship of community events, or skill-based volunteering create visible goodwill and strengthen local networks. Make giving predictable, an annual commitment or a percentage of profits, so philanthropy becomes part of organizational identity rather than ad hoc PR. Civic presence matters. Participating in local boards, chambers of commerce, or industry groups increases influence and creates informal support structures during crises. From a governance perspective, integrate philanthropy into strategic planning, budget it, measure impact where possible, and publicize results transparently without self-congratulation. Legacy planning is a practical discipline. Document succession plans, codify core values, and create archival records of key processes so the enterprise can endure beyond individual leadership. Consider endowment-like structures or charitable trusts if long-term community impact is a goal. Barnum's final lesson is ethical. Wealth that only accrues to the owner without social reinvestment breeds public suspicion and instability. When prosperity is shared thoughtfully, it builds institutions that last and reputations that outlive single lifetimes. Chapter 19. Navigating markets, timing, expansion, and adaptive strategy. In every era, the shape of opportunity shifts. New markets open, consumer tastes mutate, technologies rearrange value, and the practical entrepreneur must learn to navigate these changes without losing the core business. Barnum's practical instincts translate into a timeless playbook: expand deliberately, time markets prudently, and build adaptive strategy into the organization so that change becomes an operational competence rather than a disruptive panic. The first principle is observational humility. Markets rarely follow tidy narratives. They reveal themselves through repeated signals. Instead of chasing headlines, build simple, signal-gathering routines. Weekly sales micro-trends, short customer interviews, and a rolling list of competitor moves. These data points allow you to detect early patterns: a sustained uptick in a narrow segment, a rising cost in a supply chain node, or a behavioral nudge among repeat customers. When an opportunity emerges, test with the smallest practical investment: a pilot product, a regional launch, or a timed promotion. Treat pilots as experiments with explicit hypotheses, define success metrics, a short horizon, and a kill criterion. This disciplined experimentation prevents the costly, all-in missteps common to overly confident expansion. Timing is the second crucial skill. Entering a market too early yields education costs and cash burn. Too late, the market may be saturated or dominated by entrenched players. To calibrate timing, use 3 filters: clarity of customer problem, defensibility of your offering, and the margin profile after local costs. If the customer problem is acute and your model can be protected by service, relationships, or operational edge, earlier entry is justified. If the opportunity is mainly price competition with low differentiation, either delay until you can offer unique value or avoid the space. The third element is modular expansion architecture. Design products, teams, and processes so they can be replicated in new markets without re-engineering the entire system. Standardize core procedures, prepare a short playbook for local adaptation, and designate a small cross-functional expansion cell whose job is to run pilots and create the first local team. Chapter 20: Wealth, Stewardship, Succession, Institutional Memory, and Enduring Value. Accumulating wealth is one task. Stewarding it across time, people, and changing circumstances is another. Barnum's concern for legacy and civic presence speaks directly to the modern imperative of creating institutions that outlive their founders. Wealth stewardship begins with the deliberate separation of roles. The founder's creative energy often thrives on risk and improvisation, while a mature institution needs systems, governance, and disciplined processes to preserve value. The first operational move is succession planning as a living process, not a distant ritual. Identify potential successors early, give them progressive responsibilities, and design a mentorship path that includes rotational exposure across functions: finance, operations, customer care, and reputation management. Evaluate successors on demonstrated judgment in real tasks, not merely deference or pedigree. Formalize the transition with clear timelines, interim co-leadership phases, and documented handoffs so the organization can test the successor's fit while preserving continuity. Second, institutional memory is the repository of hard-won knowledge. Capture it in simple, accessible artifacts, annotated playbooks, recorded debriefs of key decisions, a repository of customer case studies, and an organized archive of supplier and partner relations. Make these artifacts living documents, short updates scheduled quarterly, so that memory is current rather than archaeological. Third, governance structures should be explicit and proportional. Establish a small governing body or advisory council composed of internal veterans and external, impartial advisors who can challenge assumptions and provide disciplined perspective. Define decision thresholds, what the executive team can decide, what requires governance approval, and what is reserved for strategic review. Transparent governance reduces the risk of founder drift and provides institutional steadiness during shocks. Fourth, plan the financial architecture of stewardship. Create distinct funds for operating capital, strategic investment, philanthropic commitments, and legacy endowments if civic impact is a goal. For family-held enterprises, formalize rules for dividends, reinvestment, and buy-sell agreements to prevent conflict and ensure liquidity for heirs who may wish to exit. Use conservative assumptions for long-term financial planning and stress test scenarios for economic cycles and structural shifts. Fifth, institutionalize values through rituals and metrics. Values are meaningless unless they are translated into measurable practices: customer response times, repair rates, employee development hours, and community investment ratios. Celebrate examples where values guided hard choices and include values-aligned questions in evaluation and promotion. Sixth, design mechanisms for continuous renewal. Institutions that survive do so because they reinvent incrementally, rotate leadership, refresh product lines, and open channels for young talent to inject new ideas. Protect the parts that matter and experiment intentionally in bounded spaces where failure is contained. 7th, embed ethics and public responsibility into long-term planning. Wealth stewardship includes civic obligations, transparent philanthropy, fair labor practices, and environmental considerations where relevant. Create public reporting on impact to build trust and reduce reputational tail risks. 8th, prepare for legal and tax transitions across generations. Engage advisors early to construct inheritance structures that preserve purpose and minimize disruptive tax events. Finally, cultivate humility and service as cultural glue. The most durable institutions are led by people who view stewardship as a duty to customers, employees, and community rather than a personal trophy. Teach leaders to listen, to repair public mistakes visibly, and to place institutional longevity above short-term personal acclaim. Wealth stewardship, then, is an active practice, deliberate succession, living institutional memory, clear governance, disciplined financial architecture, values translated into metrics, plans for renewal, ethical commitments, and legal readiness. When these elements are combined, the wealth you create becomes a vehicle for sustained contribution, not merely an ephemeral accumulation. The real art of money getting includes the art of money keeping and then using it to build something that matters beyond one lifetime. Conclusion: practical wealth, habits, humility, and the compound of small choices. P.T. Barnum's practical voice across this book reduces the mystique of wealth to observable habits and repeatable systems,